Chapter 3960. What surprised Ruan Xinling was that the man with the surname Su was also wearing a girl's dress and had makeup on his face. His posture was similar to Nie Yunqing's. "Brother Nie, we are indeed not suitable for each other. You like men. What a coincidence. I also like men, so I'd better leave." The man with the surname Su flew out easily, and Nie Yunqing hurriedly chased after him. Ruan Xinling stayed in place, stunned. Why was the man with the surname Su here? Between the lightning and thunder, Ruan Xinling thought of a possibility. Nie Yunqing's problem was not the aftereffects of the poison, but the secret martial arts manual. The man with the surname Su's appearance was strange. Could it be that he came for the secret martial arts manual? But he didn't expect that there was a problem with the manual. Ruan Xinling laughed out loud. It turned out that the secret martial arts manual could not be practiced by men. It turned out that it was her who caused Yunsheng to become like this. However, he did let her down. "Hey, did you two hear? Something happened at Drifting Cloud Villa." Luo Lisin was used to drinking tea and chatting at Tangwa's place. She knew that the two did not care much about Jianghu matters, so she deliberately told them. In fact, the main reason was that the four great masters of Jianghu were all married, which made her upset. Only Tangwa's place was relatively quiet. No matter what she said, Tangwa would not laugh at her. Tangwa was surprised. What happened? Ruan Xinling fed Nie Yunsheng a dispersing medicine. Luo Lisin clicked her tongue. Not only that, but she also dug out Nie Yunsheng's kneecap and hand bones. It is said that he became crazy and nagged that he would only return to normal if he stopped practicing. No one knows what happened. Nie Yunsheng could not accept it and yelled every day. Both of them were locked up. Tangwa silently guessed that Ruan Xinling must have known that Nie Yunsheng's change was due to that manual, so she chose to do that. However, his nature had changed. Even if he was dispersing his martial arts, it seemed to be useless. These two people also knew how to torment themselves. They had tormented themselves half to death. "I'm leaving. I don't know when I'll be able to find a man I like and get married. My father has been urging me a few times." Luo Lisin felt a little helpless. In any case, she was the #1 beauty in the pugilistic world. Why couldn't she find a suitable person? She felt that those people had no foresight. She decided to leave the Jianghu and explore other places. Jianghu returned to its peaceful state. Tangwa later learned that Luo Lisin had gone beyond the Great Wall and had tricked her husband into coming back. After getting married, Luo Lisin finally won the title of the #1 beauty in the pugilistic world. The amount of time Tangwa had lived in this world did not change. 20 years had been added to her original lifespan. It was neither too short nor too long. One day, Luo Lisin came to the tea house to drink tea again, only to find that Tangwa and Lu Qijian were nowhere to be seen. The tea house was also given to those people to manage. After asking around, he found out that the two of them had turned into butterflies. For a moment, he sighed. During this period, they were very familiar with each other. She also met the people of Luo Hua Palace who addressed Tangwa as the old palace master. She also understood the other party's identity and called Tangwa out directly. She was still used to coming over to drink tea when she was bored. However, without Tangwa and Lu Qijian, who was dancing with swords, it seemed that something was missing. One day, a white-haired woman came to the tea house. Luo Lisin took a closer look and realized that this person was actually Ruan Xinling. Ruan Xinling also seemed to recognize Luo Lisin. The two of them looked at each other. Luo Lisin felt that Ruan Xinling had changed a lot. However, Ruan Xinling felt that Luo Lisin had not changed at all. If she had not gotten married, she would probably still be the #1 beauty in the pugilistic world. Chapter 3961. Luo Lisin didn't speak. But Ruan Xinling said, "You were right in the past?" This sentence made Luo Lisin confused. She saw Ruan Xinling going in the direction of the Falling Flower Palace and quickly asked, "Are you going to the Falling Flower Palace?" "I want to see my master again." Luo Lisin was stunned and said subconsciously, "She has been gone for a long time. Don't you know?" She thought that Ruan Xinling should know. After all, Tangwa was her master. How could she not know? Ruan Xinling suddenly turned back. "Master is skilled in martial arts. How could it be? The world is unpredictable. She is only a little older than me. I didn't expect to die so early." Lu Qijian, that blockhead, was romantic for once. He actually went with her. Luo Lisan's tone was sour. She envied such a love. Wife, if you want, when you die in the future, you can also take me into the coffin to be buried with you. The man with a high nose and deep eyes beside Luo Lisan quickly said. Luo Lisan. Bah? Luo Lisan saw that Ruan Xinling really didn't seem to know anything, so she simply told her the truth. Ruan Xinling was a little absent-minded after hearing this. The person surnamed Tang was her master? She only felt that her whole body was weak. She leaned to the side and didn't recover for a long time. Luo Lisan saw that she was crying and handed her handkerchief. Wipe your tears. He's gone. It's useless even if you understand many things. Look at your white hair. You're so energetic. I'm afraid you won't live for many years. Go back and eat well for a few years. Luo Lisan's husband was speechless. Was this comforting? Ruan Xinling stayed there for a long time and left, leaving Luo Lisan with a desolate back. Does my husband think that my words were harsh? Luo Lisan said. She used to be confused. Now that she regrets it, it is only because she is not living well. If everything she resisted led to a better life, then she will never regret it. Do you understand? Luo Lisan saw that the man was deep in thought and snorted coldly. How dare you look at me with doubt? Wife is right. I was wrong. Since you know you're wrong, then hurry up and tell me what you're hiding from me. Yes, Luo Lisan knew that her husband was hiding something from her. The man said hesitantly, wait until I leave this world. Or when my wife leaves this world, then I'll tell you. How about that? Forget it. Miss Tang said that since the person I care about is unwilling to tell me a secret, then I might as well not ask. All right, you must tell me when the day comes. Many years later, Luo Lisan's life came to an end. She grabbed her husband's hand and said through gritted teeth, Old thing, hurry up and tell me. Don't let me die with regrets. After she finished speaking, Luo Lisan saw that the other party hesitated for a moment before she whispered the secret that she had wanted to know for the rest of her life. In fact, her vision was gradually becoming blurry, and she was about to fall into darkness. Her hearing wasn't as sharp as before, but she still heard what the other party said. Wife, the reason why I used all kinds of excuses to stop you from eating the steamed buns you mentioned before was because they were human meat buns. Miss Tang suggested that I keep this a secret. Luo Lisan, this time, I really can't die in peace. No wonder. Everyone was acting strangely back then. It was her. The group of planes. Empress Dowager Chun. Hello, everyone. Empress Dowager Chun had been observing the strange group interface in her mind for half a month. At first, she was on guard, then she was curious, and now she couldn't help but appear. Chapter 39-62. There were many strange comments here that she had never heard of in her life. After half a month of exploration, she had temporarily figured out the people here. She was not a fool. She knew that she could quickly figure out these people's identities because they did it on purpose. They didn't seem to have any ill intentions. They just wanted to make friends with her. If she wanted to speak in the group, she only needed to use her consciousness to control the strange group interface in her mind. During this time, they sent her many red packets. They said that they would not expire. She could click on them whenever she wanted. They also reminded her that if there was someone around her, she must not click on the red packet because the items inside would really appear beside her. This strange group had been in her mind for half a month and had no intention of disappearing. And she found that the people outside really didn't see anything. Those red packets accumulated in the red packet interface. She almost used them many times. But her strong control stopped her. Seeing the people in the group chat for half a month, Empress Dowager Chun felt that there shouldn't be any danger. Anyway, her current appearance was similar to that of the living dead. She really didn't want to give up if she didn't figure out this thing that suddenly appeared. Therefore, she finally decided to show up. Ziyun, Empress Dowager Chun spoke. Qi Xiao, I saw it. Everyone come out. Empress Dowager Chun has appeared. Margaret, Empress Dowager Chun, hello? You finally spoke. Shangguan Yungo, Empress Dowager Chun, do you finally believe that we have no ill intentions? Margaret, the others probably have their own things. The school beauty is currently in the new world, so she probably didn't see it. Empress Dowager Chun, let's get to know each other. My name is Margaret. I am a powerful dark magician and wizard. I come from a magical world that was targeted by the god of creation. Harold, I also come from a magical world. I think I was cursed by the god of creation. I am in the same world as Alan. We are sworn enemies. By the way, my name is Harold. Nice to meet you, Empress Dowager Chen. What a pity. Alan took his students to experience a few days ago. He shouldn't have time to come to the group. Haha, nice to meet you. Empress Dowager Chen actually knew them. Every time they spoke, they would show their identity or name. She also saw that her name was Empress Dowager Chen. They had been discussing in the group for half a month. She could recognize who they were with her eyes closed. These people all had different appearances. Their skin color and hair color were not something she had seen before. If it wasn't for the fact that she had seen a lot in the past, she would have really thought that they were monsters. There had been foreign officials who had come to her country before. Those people had blonde hair and blue eyes, so she was not surprised by this. Empress Dowager Chen. Everyone, where is this place? Why is there such a thing in my mind? Qi Xiao, this is a plane group. We come from different planes. Empress Dowager Chen being able to come here is fate. We will be friends from now on. Ziyun. According to the rules, the people who can come to this group are basically cannon fodder in the small world. Even if they used to have unlimited glory, they will have a miserable ending later on. Anyway, none of them have good endings. Margaret. I don't know when I'll be able to go from being so glorious to being so down and out. When that day comes, the school bell will definitely come to save me, right? Oh great Creator, I, Marguerite, wish to experience all the sufferings of this world. Empress Dowager Chen. Empress Dowager Chen fell into silence. She was indeed a bit pitiful right now. Was this the reason why this strange group appeared in her mind? Why was Marguerite so happy? Since there was no danger, she decided to learn more about it. Chapter 39-63. Sister Gua, are you ready? It's your turn in 10 minutes. How's your preparation going? Tangua opened her eyes and heard this hurried and cautious voice. She was facing a somewhat gorgeous mirror. Tangua opened her eyes and looked at the mirror. In the mirror, there was a woman who was dressed very beautifully. However, she wasn't dressed in ancient or modern clothes. She gave off a sense of age. However, in an instant, she figured out what era she was in based on her appearance. Through the mirror, she saw the anxious little girl beside her. The little girl was dressed very plainly and had 2 braids. She looked very delicate. It was like a frightened rabbit. It was as if this body was originally a very fierce person, which was why it was so frightening. How much longer? From the little girl's tone, she could tell that the original owner wasn't a simple person. Tangua asked calmly. The little girl didn't seem to suspect anything. She quickly said, "There were 10 minutes just now. There should be 9 minutes left now. Wake me up in 5 minutes." Tangua didn't care about the little girl's wide eyes and stomping her feet. She leaned back in the chair and closed her eyes. The little girl wanted to call out to Tangua again, but she was pulled back by the woman who previously did Tangua's makeup. Sister Gua has been performing so much recently. She must be tired. It's not time yet, right? Xiao Tao, you really don't know how to read the situation. Look at the time. Wake Sister Gui up in 5 minutes. Moreover, with Sister Gui's status in Xianles, the guests are all lining up to listen to the song. They're willing to wait for 2 minutes. It's not like we're not performing. Also, Sister Gui has to dress up properly. If the masters outside want to listen to the song and see Sister Gua, they have to wait obediently. Xiao Tao pursed her lips. The makeup artist threw her a pocket watch. Look at the time. Remember to wake Sister Gui up when it's time. Xiao Tao obediently took the pocket watch and sat down on the chair by the door. She anxiously stared at the hands of the pocket watch. Today, the people listening to the song at Xianles were all important people. If it was delayed, would there be trouble? Tangua was already accepting the memory. She had analyzed many things from the words of the servant girl Xiao Tao. If she didn't accept the memories immediately, she really didn't know what to do next. Receiving memories was actually very fast. 5 minutes was more than enough. This body of hers was not of noble birth and was only the daughter of an ordinary family. There were quite a lot of members in his family. He had parents, an elder brother, two younger brothers, and a younger sister. His father, Tang Chuanxiang, was a gambling addict. He only spent money and did not earn money. He was also in debt, and people often came to him to collect debts. His mother, Wu Feng, was also an ordinary woman. She didn't have much ability. In order to make a living, she often took on some needlework and helped people wash clothes. He was less than 40 years old, but he looked like he was almost 60. What Wu Feng envied the most was scholars. They were more rigid and disciplined. She hoped that her children were all scholars. She didn't want her children to be rich and powerful. She only wanted her children to be upright and upright. Therefore, a singer like the original owner was very cold to Wu Feng. Ever since the original owner became a singer, she had never lived at home. His relationship with his family was rather distant. However, every time she received her salary, she would bring a large sum of money home and give it to Wu Feng. Chapter 3965. Of course there is. How can I not be paid for my hard work? I don't mistreat the little maidservants around me. From that day on, the original owner worked for this woman. She was very grateful to the woman for giving her a job. She did her best in everything she did. The woman sang very well. When she was free, she would teach her a few lines. Her voice was good. Later, the woman simply accepted her as a student and taught her how to sing every day. When Wu Feng found out that the original owner went to work as a maidservant for a girl in Xianles, she was actually very angry. Later, she asked if it was just doing odd jobs. Coupled with the gambling debts, she gave up. But every time, she warned the original owner again and again. Wu Feng basically said, "Big girl, you can work, but don't learn from those people inside. If you dare to learn bad things, I promise to break your legs and never enter this door again." Do you know what kind of people there are? They are all cheap and unclean. I don't know how many people have touched their hands. They are very dirty. You are still young now. When you are 13, you will be considered a big girl. At that time, don't go to that place to work. Mother will ask someone to arrange a marriage for you. As a girl, you still need to find a good home. Time always passed in the blink of an eye. The original owner helped that woman for 5 years. From the age of 7 to 13, she followed the woman and saw a lot. At the same time, she doubted Wu Feng's words. She felt that the woman wasn't bad. She really wasn't as unclean as Wu Feng said. Even if that woman had a big boss behind her, she didn't feel that she was bad. Behind everyone, there was an unknown story. Through her contact with the woman, she found out that the woman was once a young miss of a big family. But because of some reasons, she had to go to Xianles to be a singer. But when she was 13 years old, she still listened to Wu Feng. She explained her situation to the woman. She had to listen to her mother and couldn't serve by her side. The woman smiled, as if she had already expected it. "I won't keep you, although you are a good seedling. But this place is not a good place. Not many people can be independent. Naturally, it is good to be able to leave. Little girl, sometimes I really envy you." The original owner didn't understand these words. She only felt that this beautiful woman was good and different from others. "Go, leave this chaotic place and return to your peace. I hope that you won't need to use the skills I've given you in your entire life." The woman gave the original owner a sum of money and sent her away. No one would have expected that when the original owner was 15 years old, she would return to Xianles and become a singer here. With a beautiful song and a beautiful appearance, she quickly became a popular figure in Xianles. The reason why she came back was that the debt collectors had come again. If she didn't pay up, they would chop off one of her father's hands. Secondly, her younger brother and sister had reached the age of going to school. Wu Feng really hoped that the family could provide for a child to go to school. She took on countless jobs every day and was so tired that she fell sick. Therefore, she returned to Xianles as a singer and rejected the marriage arranged by Wu Feng. Wu Feng was still seriously ill at that time, so she didn't know about this at all. Just relying on his eldest brother's hard work alone was not enough to repay the debt. His younger brothers and sisters were still young and could not help. After earning money, she paid off her family's gambling debts, sent her younger siblings to school, and sent her mother to the hospital for treatment. Chapter 3966. Part of the money was in advance, so she signed a 10-year contract with Xianles for this. In other words, she had to sing at Xianles for at least 10 years, or she would have to pay a large sum of money for breach of contract. She didn't think too much at that time, only thinking that this was the only way to solve her family's problems. It was worth mentioning that the woman who had taken her in as a student a year ago was no longer in Xianles. Later, her status became higher and higher, and she even asked people to inquire about that woman's whereabouts. Even the boss of Xianles didn't know the situation. The only thing she knew was that that woman used a large sum of money to redeem her freedom. When her mother, Wu Feng, recovered from her illness and found out about all this, she was furious and came over every day to ask her to go home. She had already signed a contract with Xianles, and even if she didn't sign it, they had given her money in advance. So how could she go home? Besides, there were many times when the family needed money, such as her father's debt and her younger sibling's schooling. Knowing Wu Feng's stubbornness, she simply moved to Xianles. Seeing her so stubborn, Wu Feng also threatened that as long as she was in Xianles, she would never return to that home. That home was clean and couldn't have any filthy things. She used to live in a small room in Xianles, and later became more and more famous, so Xianles arranged for her to live in a luxurious villa. She seemed to have changed a lot, but the only thing that didn't change was that she didn't forget that home. She gave her family living expenses on time every month, paid for her younger siblings' school fees, and occasionally subsidized some. Perhaps because of Wu Feng's influence, her younger siblings were indifferent to her, especially her younger sister, Tang Si, who felt that she was a person who was willing to do anything for money. She was the kind of person that Wu Feng said was unclean, so her attitude towards her was very bad. The only one who treated her the same as before was her older brother, Tang Yuhui. Tang Yuhui would occasionally come to see her, and every time he saw her, he would say that she had suffered. He also told her that if she couldn't continue, she should stop. He also said that he was already working for the big boss, and when he became successful in the future, he would help her redeem her freedom and find a good marriage for her, so that she could marry grandly. Because of this, her older brother never married, as he felt that he still had many things to do and couldn't delay a good girl. Unfortunately, her older brother died in an accident. After her elder brother died, no one in the family spoke up for her. Her family even thought that she was the one who killed her elder brother. Wu Feng said, "If it weren't for you, would boss run around with boss and encounter an accident in the end?" Every day, the heavens are nagging that you must earn a lot of money and let you leave Xian Lisi. If he didn't care about you, then today's matter wouldn't have happened. The gambler's father, Tang Chuanxiang, also pointed at her nose and scolded, "You are a jinx?" Her two younger brothers were very silent. They didn't say anything to blame her, but from their attitude, it was clear that they did blame her. Tang Si was more agitated and scolded her directly. "Your soul has been corrupted by money. It's all because of you. If it weren't for you, Big Brother wouldn't have worked so hard and had an accident." Perhaps she really felt that it was all her fault. She felt very guilty and wanted to take good care of this family. Later on, his younger sister, Tang Si, fell in love with a poor brat who fought. She even said something like free love, a prodigal son turning over a new leaf, and she had to be with the other party. Of course, Wu Feng didn't agree. She felt that her daughter was a university student after all, and her future partner should be someone with knowledge. No matter what, it couldn't be a poor brat who only knew how to fight and cause trouble all day long, right? Chapter 39:67. Wu Feng tried to persuade her twice, but she didn't expect Tang Si to be so rebellious and would often quarrel with her. Wu Feng was at her wit's end. When the original owner returned home, she mentioned this matter to her and asked her to help persuade her. Tang Si's younger brothers and sisters had never experienced true poverty, especially Tang Si. When she was 2 or 3 years old, the original owner was already working as a servant girl by that woman's side. That woman was actually very kind. She knew that her younger brothers and sisters were taking care of her at home, so she would often find an excuse to bring back good things for her. The reason why her younger brothers and sisters could grow up so well was all thanks to her work. When she became a singer in Xianles, she didn't mistreat her younger brothers and sisters. She didn't want them to suffer like she did, so she treasured them very much. If it wasn't for life, who would be willing to sing in that place? Even if they sang for a living, in the eyes of the world, they were still unclean. Tangsi fell in love with a poor boy who only knew how to fight. She didn't care about anyone's objections and wanted to be with him. The biggest reason was that she didn't know what poverty was, and she didn't know what it was like to be cornered. Her current good days were all given to her by others. If it wasn't for her own hard work, she wouldn't care at all. She didn't know that this kind of life wasn't easy to come by in this era. Many people still didn't have enough to eat. In this era, in order to eat, it was very common to sell children, especially girls. If their family wasn't doing well, many couldn't avoid the fate of being sold. The original owner suffered, especially her mother Wu Feng, who was dragged down by Tang Chuanxiang her entire life. If it wasn't for this family, how could she have fallen to singing in Xianless? After hearing Wu Feng's words, she specially went to Tang Si school to find her. She waited for Tang Si at the school gate. She didn't expect Tang Si to scold her. "Why are you here? If there's something, can't we talk at home?" This was Tang Si's attitude. In this memory, Tang Si's expression was very ugly at the time. She was also looking around, as if she was afraid that someone would find out that she was familiar with the original owner. Yes, Tang Si was afraid that a good artistic young woman like her would lose face if people found out that she had a singer sister. In their circle of students, they looked down on those who became singers. They thought that those filthy places were places corrupted by money. The original owner was very popular at that time, but she was still recognized. Tang Si was very angry, but she didn't make a big fuss because of her face. Later on, she even told her classmates that she and this sister of hers were just two passers-by. Since they were young, she had never listened to her family to distance herself from them. Some male students criticized those singers who were corrupted by money, but when no one was paying attention, they would secretly watch the singers sing. However, they didn't have much money in their bags and were very shabby. They couldn't talk to the singers, eat at the same table, or even give flowers to them like the other big bosses. They couldn't even get a proper look. These male students felt humiliated, and their self-esteem trampled on. They thought that these female singers were all trying to curry favor with the rich and powerful and only had money in their eyes. Now, they would use harsh words to criticize those singers, just as they were infatuated with those singers. This meeting was not a pleasant one. The original owner explained her intentions, but before she could finish, she was interrupted by Tang Si. "It's none of your business. This is a free love affair. You have no right to interfere. If you want to interfere with me, why don't you take care of yourself? In the future, don't come to school." Chapter 3968. The original owner didn't dare to speak harshly. After all, the relationship between the two sisters was tense. Ever since her elder brother passed away, she felt more and more guilty towards this family and cherished them even more. She had the idea of saving money to redeem herself. However, the contract she signed with Xianlesi stated that the penalty would increase with her value. After saving enough money, she might not have much left after redeeming herself. Otherwise, she could only wait until the 10-year contract was up. There were still 5 years until that day. 5 years could change a lot of things. When the two sisters parted on bad terms, the original owner still gave Tang Si some money to buy what she liked. If there was anything she needed for her studies, she didn't need to save. Tang Si had an expression that said, "Even if you give me money, don't expect me to not care about anything. I'll listen to you. I'll never forget that my elder brother died because of you." In the end, she reluctantly accepted the money. Later, the original owner tried to persuade her a few more times, but it was to no avail. Tang Si and that poor boy called Zhou Guan loved each other fiercely, regardless of anyone's objections. Her free love and resistance to old ideas were praised by many students in the student circle. Some people even wrote articles praising their sincere love. Zhou Guan wasn't a simple poor boy. Tang Si didn't know at first that Zhou Guan's mother was a dancer in a nightclub. Later, she found out that perhaps because she loved Zhou Guan, she had a filter on the people around him. Plus, she heard that the other party had resolutely given up her identity as a dance queen for love, leaving that place and becoming an ordinary woman. However, she had entrusted herself to the wrong person. That man didn't want to marry her at all. She didn't regret it, and still worked hard to raise Zhou Guan. So, Zhou Guan was the illegitimate son of the big boss. In this era, it was normal for big families to have several wives. And when men talked about things, they would always go to those romantic places. It was common for them to meet women. Zhou Guan's appearance wasn't unexpected. Many of those women in those romantic places wanted to marry into a big family and become a concubine. It was better than being in the limelight every day. Thinking about it, Zhou Guan's mother wasn't as noble as Tang Si said. The only thing she didn't expect was that her big boss was just putting on a show and didn't intend to marry her. In the beginning, the Zhou family left Zhou Guan to fend for himself. They didn't care about him. The Zhou family didn't lack sons. Mrs. Zhou didn't allow illegitimate children to enter the family. During this period, Zhou Guan and Tang Si caused a lot of trouble, but most of it was settled by the original owner. In the beginning, it was because of their relationship. Later on, they had to pay for it. Chapter 3969. Tang Chuanxiang didn't say anything. He just sat there silently. He was thinking that he couldn't break off his relationship with this daughter who could make money. Otherwise, who would help him pay off his gambling debts? Rely on the three little ones? Did the three little ones have the ability to do that? He owed quite a lot of gambling debts. The original owner left sadly and didn't return home, but she still paid attention to the family's affairs. Knowing that her younger siblings were doing well, she didn't care and lived like the living dead. When debt collectors came to her door, she would pay them no matter how much they wanted. Over time, Tang Chuanxiang gambled more and more. When her contract with Xianles expired, she didn't renew it and announced her withdrawal. That year, she was 25 years old. She bought a small villa and stayed in it all day. She didn't see any visitors, rejected the pursuit of her admirers, and occasionally helped Tang Chuanxiang pay off his gambling debts. Unknowingly, the family's property was emptied, and the villa was sold in the end. But the gambling debts were still not paid. Tang Chuanxiang flew into a rage out of humiliation and sent the original owner to the creditor. But just as she was sent to the creditor's house, she died. Her death was very quiet and sudden. The doctor checked and found that it wasn't poison. It was probably an old illness. She had just turned 30 years old when she died. Seeing that Tang Chuanxiang couldn't pay, the creditor first broke his arms and went to trouble Tang Si and her siblings. At first, the siblings were at a disadvantage and almost lost their lives. Especially Tang Si, she almost lost her virginity. Later, Zhou Guan came to save them. Now, Zhou Guan was no longer that poor boy, but the legitimate young master of the Zhou family. How did Zhou Guan get promoted? That was to say that the two outstanding sons and one daughter of the Zhou family died in accidents. Old Master Zhou had already passed away. Old Madame Zhou was reminded that Zhou Guan was a descendant of the family and happily welcomed him back. At this time, Mrs. Zhou was too sad to do anything else. All the wealth of the huge Zhou family belonged to Zhou Guan. Zhou Guan was now young Master Zhou. It was easy for him to deal with small troubles. Later, after a series of setbacks, Zhou Guan and Tang Si finally got married. The original owner had long been forgotten. When people talked about her, they only knew that she lived in Xianles for 10 years. No one knew how bloody the story behind the glamour was. Perhaps in the eyes of the Tang family, she had brought this upon herself. Tang Chuanxiang, who had lost both of his arms, finally stopped gambling. Under the care of Wu Feng, he lived his life peacefully. The two brothers, Tang Yuxing and Tang Yushu, had also made some achievements in their fields. One of them became a slightly famous painter, while the other was very good at writing essays and was known as a great talent. Tang Si had her own love and became the young mistress of the Zhou family by accident. She was once praised for her relationship with Zhou Guan. Everyone said that it was because of her kindness that she was able to pick up a pearl. The ending was so harmonious and perfect. There seemed to be no problems at all. Miss Host, 5 minutes have passed. You should have finished reading the content. Also, Empress Dowager Chen has appeared in the group, but you probably don't have time to read it now. You have to perform on stage. Yes, Tang Guo responded. After receiving all the memories, she naturally knew what the next performance was. Singing was her forte. Moreover, she was quite familiar with the music in the original owner's head. After receiving the memory, it was basically her own. Sister Guo, 5 minutes have passed. The moment Tang Gua opened her eyes, the little girl from before came over with a pocket watch. She reminded her nervously, Sister Gua, it's time to go on stage. 3 to 4 minutes will pass very quickly. Tang Gua glanced at the little girl indifferently. She didn't argue with her. She just nodded slightly and stood up from her seat. Chapter 3970. Relying on her memory, she walked in the direction of the stage. Her mind was still recalling the song she was going to sing this time, and her mouth was humming along. Hey, what's going on today? She's humming a song and seems to be in a good mood. Who knows? She usually doesn't have a good expression when she goes backstage. Who knows what's wrong with her? Young people are full of vigor. She thinks she's great just because she's popular. Unless there are many people who can be popular. Later, she will know what it means to be a new generation. No one will always be at the top. Smart people are already looking for a way out for themselves at this time. Yeah, I heard that the previous one, didn't she leave when she was at the peak of her popularity? I heard that she redeemed herself. I don't know where she went. There hasn't been any news about her these years. That one. There are so many big bosses who like her. Just pick one, and you won't have to worry about the rest of your life. Let's not have extravagant hopes. You say it as if you've seen it with your own eyes. At that time, weren't we still playing in the mud on the street? You don't say. I've seen that one's elegant demeanor from afar. Indeed, there are very few people who can compare to her. It is said that every time she performed, the guests in the cabaret would be full. Arzianel's entrance even had people stop to watch. Several singers were discussing in the dressing room. In fact, their hearts were extremely sour. This one can't be compared to that one for the time being. Now, every performance was also full. What are you guys talking about? At this time, the manager came over and scolded the singers. If you have time to discuss here, it's useless. You might as well practice your voice and practice your basic skills. After the manager scolded them, he turned around and left. His eyes looked in the direction of the stage. This one, wasn't she personally taught by that one? Otherwise, how could Xianles give her such generous conditions? Worthy of being taught by that one, she really didn't disappoint. Tang Gua was going to sing 3 songs today. The first song was her own choice, and the other 2 songs were ordered by the bosses in the cabaret. After 3 songs, several hours had passed. The guests who watched the singing and dancing felt that time passed quickly and regretfully left. Tang Gua refused the invitations of those bosses to eat and went backstage to remove her makeup. Then, under the escort of the security guards, she returned to the residence that Xianlisi had arranged for her. It was a very luxurious villa. The manager of Xianles did not reject the invitations of those bosses at all for her sake. This was their Xianel's signature dish. How could they casually go out to eat with others? Even if it was a simple dinner, it was not something that ordinary people could invite. If anyone could be invited out, then this signboard would be worthless. If there was really a very important person who wanted to see her and invite her to have a meal together, they would inform the manager in advance and come over to remind her. Tang Gua refused with a clear conscience. She felt no pressure in her heart. She still had a lot of things to do, such as figuring out this world and going to the group to see what was going on with Empress Dowager Chan. For the time being, she didn't plan to leave Xianlisi. She still planned to use her identity as the singer of Xianlisi to do something big. The system seemed to have smelled some danger and was calling for someone to come quickly. Tang Gua looked at the schedule. Her next performance was scheduled for the day after tomorrow. The people of this era were still very good at hunger marketing. Just this kind of arrangement was enough to entice people to no end. Chapter 3971. However, this body did indeed have a very good voice. In addition, the songs at this time all had a very special charm. As long as one sang with one's heart and emotions, it was very easy to move one's emotions and make one follow her unknowingly. School bell, hello everyone. I'm in the new world. I heard that Empress Dowager Chun has appeared. Margaret, okay, I knew it. It's not me this time. Oh my God, my great and wise God of creation. Are you targeting me, or are you asleep? Okay, I'm done venting. You can speak freely. Qi Xiao, sister, how's the situation on your side? Ziyun went to refine pills. Yun Tian has a new understanding. He's currently in seclusion. I don't know when he'll come out. Shangguan Yun Gu, Uncle Master, Empress Dowager Chun has accepted everything here. Maybe my background is similar to her world. With my help, Empress Dowager Chun finally understands and accepts this group. School bell. Unfortunately, Empress Dowager Chun shouldn't be here. Margaret, maybe she's being abused. This old lady is quite pitiful. People come to bully her every day. She can't resist. She can only stare. She lives like a living dead. Oh, I think she's the one targeted by the god of creation. School bell. What's going on? Shangguan Yun Gu. Maybe this is the cannon fodder law. Anyway, those who enter this group shouldn't have a good ending. Looking at everyone's experience, I think Empress Dowager Chin is a bit miserable. Margaret, actually, if the school bell goes to Empress Dowager Chin's world first, I don't have any objections. After all, this old lady is really miserable. Empress Dowager Chun, Margaret, don't call her old lady. I'm only 40 years old this year. I'm not old. Qi Xiao, Empress Dowager Chun is here. This is our group leader, the school bell, and also my sister. She's more powerful than us. She can travel through worlds at will. Since you're in this group, she might go to your world in the future. School bell, Empress Dowager Chun, welcome. Empress Dowager Chun, thank you. I thought my life would be like this. I didn't expect such a magical thing to appear in my mind. I met a group of interesting people like you. Empress Dowager Chan had completely accepted this group and roughly understood it. School bell, Margaret's words, you don't seem to be well. Empress Dowager Chun, actually, I'm used to it. It turned out that Empress Dowager Chun had been poisoned by some unknown poison. Her entire body was stiff and could not move. Only her head was normal. Today's Empress used the excuse of visiting her every day to bully her, beat, and scold her. Empress Dowager Empress, Empress Dowager Chun, Empress Dowager Empress, Empress Dowager Empress Dowager Chin, Empress Dowager, Empress Dowager Empress Press, Empress. Trying, since meeting. Empress. Group, name. The original owner didn't know how to read at first. Later, she followed that mysterious woman and the other party taught her how to read. In fact, her handwriting was very good, even better than her brothers and sisters in the family, but she never showed it. In her heart, how could she not want to go to school like an ordinary person? Chapter 3972. That mysterious woman was a lady from a respectable family. Her knowledge was not something an ordinary person could compare to. She had taught her a lot. The reason why she did not show off in front of others was because she did not want to show off. She did not want to be too perfect. The mysterious woman said that if she did not have enough power to protect herself, she would easily fall into a trap and no one would be able to save her. Tang Yuhui, Zhou Ji, Zhou Imo, Zhou Ruoxue, Madam Host, why did you write down their names? The system was confused for a moment. Dear host, are you planning to prevent an accident from happening to Brother Tang? Nothing has happened yet. I know when these accidents will happen. Of course, I have to stop them. Also, the young master and young lady of the Zhou family must be saved. Tang was stared at the 4 names on the paper. If the young master and young lady of the Zhou family are still alive, Zhou Guan will have nothing to do with them. Zhou Guan was able to get such a big advantage because the Zhou family did not have an heir. The system agreed. Dear host, you are so thoughtful. There is still some time before these things happen. I plan to do something else. Tangwa took out an unused letter paper from the drawer. Under the system's puzzled gaze, she began to write the words stroke by stroke. When she finished writing, the system was a little surprised. Dear host, are you writing an article? Yes. Tangwa said casually, I don't perform every day. I'll write an article and submit it to the newspaper. The system was still a little confused. Why was Tangwa in such a leisurely mood to write an article? After thinking deeply, it still did not think that the host was doing something boring. Every time she took a step, she definitely had her own ideas. Tangwa wrote for 3 hours. This article, after deleting and editing, was a total of 3,000 words. After the system read it, it felt that it was a good article. Tangwa gave herself a pin name, Mountain Man. She also gave the article a title, News Stories in Troubled Times. She put the finished article into an envelope, put a stamp on it, and sent it to the mailbox. The newspaper should receive her article in a few days. As for whether or not the news agency would accept her article, she had transmigrated to so many worlds and had so much experience. If the news agency didn't like what she wrote, it would be a joke. Moreover, the things she wrote were all based on the current era. Her words were sharp and full of criticism. Throughout the entire article, there was almost no gentleness to be found. The content of the article did not match her pen name at all. This was exactly the effect she wanted. Once her article was published, the people who read it would definitely notice her pen name as long as they understood it. Then, he would definitely fall into deep thought and finally understand why she was called a person from the mountains. A person from the mountains was a person who had once lived in seclusion in the mountains. It was the literal meaning. Then why would the people in the mountains write such a fierce article? Of course, it was because the world was in chaos. The people in the mountains could no longer sit still and decided to come out of the mountains to wake the people up. However, Tangwa only had one goal, which was to let all the scholars in this world know about the existence of the mountain people as soon as possible. Later on, she would find time to write some articles and submit them to the news agency. After writing this, Tangwa went downstairs to look for the servants. How could such a big villa not have at least 2 servants to help take care of it? Not only would there be servants to clean the house and cook for her, there would also be a butler. Chapter 39:73. As for the little maid named Xiao Tao, she wasn't one of her people, but rather someone arranged by Xian Lisi. When she went to Xian Lisi, she would help her with things like serving tea and water. Tangwa found the housekeeper, Uncle An, was about 50 years old. Uncle An wasn't arranged by Xian Lisi, but rather a housekeeper that she found herself. Uncle An was originally called An Hua. He was an escapee and happened to meet the original owner. The original owner saw that he wasn't an ordinary escapee and asked him if he could read. After learning that he could, she hired him as the housekeeper of this villa. "Miss, do you have any orders?" "Uncle An, I want to learn some new things." Tangwa sat on the sofa. "After all, you can't sing forever, right?" Uncle An nodded amiably. It's good that Miss has thought things through so clearly at such a young age. Uncle An also felt that now that Tangwa was young and sang well, half of the reason why people came to listen to her was because she was young and beautiful. If one day she wasn't young anymore, so what if her singing was good? She still couldn't compare to a newcomer. If one didn't have a skill, it would be really hard to survive in this world. Moreover, this era wasn't completely without opportunities. This was an era of change, so it was right to learn more useful things. Singing was a meal of youth, but wasn't being beautiful also a meal of youth? He had seen many girls in Xian Lisi. Most of them wanted to make a fortune, find someone to marry in the future, and live their lives honestly. However, there weren't many who could have a good ending. There were also some who wanted to use this opportunity to become a concubine in a rich family, but how many were truly successful? Even if they were successful, would becoming a concubine really mean that they could rest easy? He was afraid that if he went to that big house, he would have to continue to fight with the women behind him. Without a man or woman under his name, life would still be difficult. If one day the master didn't like him and kicked him out, then he would really have no one to help him. "Uncle An, can you help me find some teachers who know how to draw? I want to learn how to draw. Also, hire a foreign language teacher for me. Right? I also need a musical instrument teacher. Right now, I usually perform once every other day. The rest of my time is basically arranged by myself. If I stay at home all day and do nothing, I might as well learn some things. Money isn't a problem. As long as the teacher is good, any amount is fine." Right now, she really wasn't short of money. Soon, she would be even less short of money, because if she didn't give the money to the Tang family, she didn't know how much she could live. After taking her money, they still complained that she was unclean. These people were really greedy and bitchy. Since he despised her money for being dirty, then he was not allowed to take it anymore. He had to think of a way himself. Uncle Anne's a child's mother. Of the rich young masters and young masters he had seen in the past had learned 10 or 20 skills at the same time. He thought Tangwa was good at painting, music, and foreign languages. He didn't expect Miss Tang to be so far-sighted. Tangwa gave the money to Enhua in advance and told her to find the teacher as soon as possible. Of Estes for now, she was for a while back. Ants, force, S of this, A's A, S A S, Hua, S, her words. Of course, she planned to serialize another cautionary article when she wrote it. Chapter 3974. She sent it over bit by bit, and when she was free, she would write a little. A day passed just like that, and Tangwa did not go anywhere. Actually, according to the original owner's personality, she would not go anywhere today. She would just stay in the study and read. Uncle N and the servants in the villa all knew that she could read. Uncle N even knew that she had good handwriting. After all, they had been together for a long time, and the original owner did not deliberately hide it, so it was normal for them to know this. Uncle N was a tight-lipped person, and he never talked about it. At the same time, he also reminded the servants in the villa not to talk nonsense. At this time, the pay at Tangwa's place was better than other places, and the servants did not want to lose this job. In other rich families, there were many things to do, and the pay was not as high. If they lost this job, they probably would not be able to find another one as good as this one, so they cherished it very much. The next day, Tangwa performed at night. Her performance time was sometimes in the day, sometimes in the night. It was always uncertain. Xianles was a very high-class nightclub, and she could be considered as Xianl's signature. Sometimes, she would perform every other day, sometimes 2 days. The day before each performance, Xianles would hire people to advertise the time of her performance on the streets. Then, those who were waiting for her performance would rush to buy tickets like a swarm of bees. Among them, there were many scalpers, which were people who speculated on tickets. This kind of profession existed all the time. However, the tickets that these scalpers snatched were all booked in advance. They were afraid that they would not be able to get the tickets themselves, so they hired these scalpers and paid them a certain amount of commission. Those who could do this were either rich or respectable. The scalpers were not so arrogant as to raise the price. They basically charged a commission for the ticket price, which was still acceptable, and those people did not care about the double price. Of course, if they were of a higher status, they only needed to call Xianles or instruct someone to go to Xianles, and they would be able to get the tickets in advance. But under normal circumstances, this kind of privilege would not be used. After all, this was considered as owing a favor, and it was not good for them. At night, Tangwa went on stage again. The number of times she sang was very fixed. Basically, she was free to sing 3 songs each time, and at most 5 songs. Therefore, it always gave people a feeling of wanting more. In the end, they could only stare at her back, wishing they could stick their eyes on her body. It was a peaceful day. When Tangwa returned to the villa, it was already very late. As soon as she stepped through the door, the housekeeper, Enhua, came up to her. "Miss, the teachers I contacted for you have all been confirmed. As for the specifics, we still have to wait for them to come over tomorrow to discuss. As for the arrangement of the classes, I have already explained it to them. We still have to follow Miss' schedule." "No problem. What time are you coming over tomorrow?" 9 o'clock. "Okay, tell the kitchen to prepare lunch." Tangwa was quite anxious about this matter and hoped to arrange these courses as soon as possible. She needed to give people the impression that she was more talented in this area and that she could achieve it quickly. Tangwa asked about the identities of these people and found out that they were all teachers of a school in the city. After hearing the news, Tangwa was even happier. Enhua actually did not say anything. At the beginning, he had sought out a few very famous singers, but when they heard that he was going to be a singing teacher, they rejected him. It was better not to say these unnecessary things to upset the young miss and hurt her. At this time, for students to write love letters to their teachers, as long as they were educated, most of them would be able to accept it. They would even support it. They would think that this was a revolution in thinking. Wasn't this the pursuit of free love? Hello, teachers. Thank you for accepting me as your student. Tangwa smiled and invited them to sit down. The few of them nodded kindly. In fact, they didn't have any students with such status, so they didn't have any prejudice against this profession. It was just that they had seen too little, or rather, they had never seen a female singer willing to improve herself. So when Enhua spoke, they agreed without hesitation. The music teacher, In Yu, had heard Tangwa sing before. Not only that, he often came to listen to her singing. It was just that they had never met before. He always hid in a corner and listened quietly. He always felt that her voice was very beautiful. Now that he had such a student, he felt very excited. Zhu Shishir felt that no matter who it was, as long as they were willing to accept her knowledge, she would teach them well. Cheng Han was still considering. He wanted to give it a try. After all, he had never taught such a student before. Chapter 39-76. If she had talent in this area, he naturally wouldn't miss out on such a student. If her talent was mediocre, then he could only teach her at the level of an ordinary student. Following this, Tangwa and the others discussed the curriculum. Her performances were usually scheduled a week in advance, so they could arrange a week's worth of lessons in advance. After the discussion, it was almost noon. The food was already prepared, so they ate together. After the meal, Cheng Han and Zhu Shishir said that they would go back to prepare for her lessons. Only Yin Yu didn't leave. Tangwa asked with a smile, "Teacher Yin, do you have any other questions? Are you free this afternoon? If you don't mind, we can start the lesson now." Although he didn't have an instrument, it was fine if he didn't have one for the first lesson. Of course, when Tangwa brought Yin Yu into the classroom, he was stunned that there were instruments he didn't know how to play. This was a very large room. Not only were there instruments, but there were also drawing tools and even a large bookcase. It was obvious to the naked eye that this room was divided into 3 sections. It was probably specially prepared for the 3 teachers. Yin Yu was a bit excited. This student was very eager to learn. The two didn't waste words and immediately started the lesson. Because Tangwa had a foundation, Yin Yu didn't start from the basics. Instead, he tested her first and then taught her what she didn't know, or what she was prone to making mistakes. Whether it was the original host or Tangwa, there was no problem with singing. Her pronunciation was very accurate, and Yin Yu felt that there was no need to teach her this. Then he asked Tangwa, "What instrument do you want to learn?" "Teacher, you can teach me whichever one you feel inspired by first." In any case, she knew all the instruments here. Teacher Yin's role was to give her a source for her skills. This time, she had to be in the limelight. "Then let's go with the piano." Yin Yu felt that this was more reliable. The study room was tightly shut for the entire afternoon, and Hua moved a chair over and sat outside the study room, afraid that Tangwa would have some instructions. When he heard the music coming from inside, a smile appeared on his face. When the sky was almost dark, the music inside stopped. As the sound of footsteps approached the door, Hua quickly stood up and opened it. He thought that he would see a tired Tangwa and a tired teacher Yin. Unexpectedly, when he saw the two of them, it was different from what he had expected. "Tangwa, you really are a genius. I've never seen a genius like you before." Yin Yu's face was flushed red. He looked at Tangwa excitedly. "You seem to have a performance tomorrow. If it's possible, you can give me the remaining time of your performance. I have 2 classes tomorrow, both in the afternoon. I'm very free in the morning." Chapter 39-77. Today was payday. Tangwa purposely didn't arrange any classes for herself. It could be considered a holiday for herself and the teachers. Coincidentally, she didn't have a performance today. After receiving her paycheck at Xianles, she took out several envelopes. According to the habits of the original owner, she put the money for the Family Tang people into different envelopes. Although she didn't plan to give the Family Tang people any more money, she still needed these envelopes to put on a show. She walked out of Xianles and got on a rickshaw. The coachman took her to the alley where the Family Tang people lived. The Family Tang people had always lived in a narrow alley. The house wasn't big, and only had 3 rooms. One of the rooms was neither big nor small for Wu Feng and Tang Chuanxiang. The biggest room was for the 3 family Tang brothers. The last room was slightly smaller for her and her younger sister Tang Si. Because she moved out of the family Tang many years ago, there was almost no trace of her existence in that small room. It could be considered as her younger sister Tang Si's personal room. In the past few years, every time she came back, the number of times she stepped into that room could be counted on one hand. Tang Si basically treated that small room as her personal space. She put all the things that once belonged to the original owner into a box. At first, the box was still in the room. Later, when she wanted to put things like a desk, she felt that the room was too small, so she moved the box outside. It was the eldest brother of the family Tang, Tang Yuhui, who felt that it wasn't good to leave it outside. If it got caught in the rain, the things inside would definitely be damaged. Tang Yuhui also thought that one day his eldest sister would come back to live with him. So he put the box in the 3 family Tang brothers' room and occupied the position next to his bed. Tang Si didn't care about this. She felt that as long as there was nothing in her way, it was fine. Now, as long as she went out, Tang Si would lock the room. Not to mention Tang Gua. Even other people couldn't enter that room without her permission. At first, Wu Feng wasn't satisfied, but she slowly got used to it. Tang Gua thought that Tang Si's actions showed that she was looking down on her as an elder sister. If it wasn't for the fact that the other party couldn't be independent and relied on his own ability to earn money, he might have already told her that all the money she earned was dirty money, just like in the storyline. She really wanted to know what Tang Si would be like when she no longer had this self-help with dirty money. While she was thinking, Tang Gua had already arrived at the alley that led to the family Tang. The alley was rather narrow, and the rickshaw could not enter, so it could only stop here. She was dressed plainly today, but there was something special about her. No matter how plain her clothes were, they were still dazzling when she wore them. She slowly walked towards the family Tang restaurant and finally arrived at the entrance of the family Tang restaurant. The door was ajar, which meant that there should be someone inside. She could even hear the sound of clothes being washed from inside. It should be Wu Feng helping someone wash clothes. She gently knocked on the door and heard a woman's voice. "Who is it? The door isn't closed. I'm busy with work. Come in." Tang Gua pushed the door open. Perhaps the door hadn't been repaired for a long time, so it made a particularly ear-piercing creaking sound. She took 2 steps into the small courtyard, and her gaze fell on Wu Feng. She was indeed sitting on a stool, washing clothes with all her might. Perhaps she sensed that someone had come in, so she subconsciously raised her head. When she saw Tang Gua, she wasn't too surprised. Chapter 3978. Perhaps because the original owner came on time every time, Wu Feng knew that she was here to deliver money. But Wu Feng had always been dissatisfied with this disobedient daughter. Not only was she disobedient, but she also showed up in public. Now when she went out, she often heard those men talking about Miss Tang of Xianlisi. If they could get tickets to Miss Tang's performance, they would feel that it was worth it even if they died. Wu Feng couldn't bear to hear these words. She only felt ashamed. Tang Gua had embarrassed her. Thinking of this, Wu Feng saw Tang Gua in front of her, and her face couldn't help but sink. "Why are you here?" It was a line that would never change. Wu Feng clearly knew that Tang Gua was here to deliver money, but she still couldn't help but say this. Tang Gua knew that Wu Feng's next sentence would definitely be, "Didn't I tell you not to come back? If people saw you, they would gossip about you. Don't you think that our family hasn't lost enough face?" However, Tang Gua knew that many people were actually very envious of the Tang family. Even if they said unpleasant things, they were envious in their hearts. Those unpleasant words were mostly because they didn't have a daughter like the original owner who could send a large sum of money back on time every month. This was a chaotic world. Where did Face come from? It was already good enough that they were still alive. What was Face? It was something that people would only think about after they ate and didn't go hungry. Talking about Face with you on an empty stomach was bullshit. Sure enough, Wu Feng began to nag. Her words were full of disdain for Tang Gua. "Look, we are a good family. Why do you have to show up in public and sing to men? Isn't that a disgrace to the family? Our old family's face has been lost because of you." Wu Fengnian muttered a lot and said all the words she could think of. Do you know how unpleasant their words are? Hearing this, Tangwa couldn't help but interrupt Wu Feng. Mom, if I don't do these things, can our family still live? You can live a good life. Why can't you live a good life? The rich have their way of living, and the poor have their way of living. It's better than doing these disgraceful things. Now, my family's reputation has been completely ruined by you. After so many years, I thought that Mom had already accepted it. I didn't expect that she still thinks that the money I earn is not clean. How clean can the money earned from singing be? Wu Feng was furious. You smile at men all day long, and I heard that you occasionally eat with some big bosses. Do you think this is normal? How shameful. Fortunately, you don't live in this house. Otherwise, I don't know how many people would come to laugh at you. Tangwa took out an envelope from her bag and held it in her hand. She looked at Wu Feng indifferently. Mom, I came here to give you some money. Take it away, take it away. I don't care about your dirty money. Haven't I told you many times? I told you not to take it back. Our family is very good. We don't need your dirty money to support us. Got it, Tangwa answered calmly. At first, Wu Feng didn't notice anything. She was a little surprised when she saw Tangwa put the envelope back into her bag instead of shoving it into her hand and leaving as usual. System, are you laughing to death? Are you very surprised? There will be many more such accidents in the future. Hurry up and take care of your heart. I didn't expect that after all these years. I was afraid that we wouldn't have enough money to live. Hearing Mom say this, it seems that I was worrying too much. That was because the Tang family members were all prideful and would not take the initiative to expose the fact that she did not pay. In the future, when they had no income, they would only secretly become angry out of humiliation and make a fuss about her identity as a singer. However, in Tangwa's opinion, being a singer wasn't shameful. Moreover, wasn't the original owner of the body a singer because of her family? If she really wanted to expose everything, she was sure that she would not be the one to be embarrassed. Instead, it would be the people from the family Tang, as well as the few artistic youths who believe that they should be free to love and not pursue money but their dreams. Artistic youths? Heh, if she had a realistic nightmare, she would be cured of all the artistic youth's problems. Let's see if they would still dare to gnaw on her flesh and blood and say that their souls were corrupted by money. Her 3 younger siblings were not in the same school. The first person Tangwa met was her second brother, Tang Yusheng. Chapter 3980. Where's Yushu? Tangwa asked Tang Yusheng. In fact, she knew why Tang Yushu didn't come. Tang Yushu was a person full of bad taste. He carried the tradition of the old era in his bones and had special double standards. He thought that it was a very shameful thing for his biological sister to be a singer. It was simply a disgrace to him as a scholar. Therefore, every time Tangwa came, Tang Yushu came out to meet her. Tang Yushu was afraid that if he saw Tangwa, he would attract other people's attention and be laughed at by his classmates. Several good friends knew their relationship with Tangwa. Occasionally, they would tease him, which made Tang Yushu feel very embarrassed. He disliked this sister who sang in Xianlisi even more. Yushu is not free. Tang Yusheng didn't even call her sister. He just stood there woodenly. The reason why he didn't leave was that he was waiting for Tangwa to give him money. His dream was to paint. Those who knew this industry knew that no matter when, it was very expensive. Only buying paint was a bottomless pit. Behind a famous painter, there must be a mountain of paint consumption. But he also wanted to save face. It was impossible for him to ask for money. He looked down on singers. As a man, wouldn't it be a joke if he asked a singer for money? Every time I came over these years, I gave you money. Did I cause you trouble? Tang Yusheng was a little impatient. He frowned and said, "What's the matter? Just say it. I have to go back to painting." Now you won't even call me sister. Tangwa's tone was still flat, but there was a touch of sadness, as if there was an unsolvable sadness in it. Tang Yusheng didn't care at all. In his opinion, she was moaning about nothing and had many problems. She had put down her dignity to be a singer. Shouldn't this result have been expected a long time ago? He had done something shameful, but she still wanted him to call her sister? If his classmates saw this, they would definitely laugh at him. I won't come again in the future. Tangwa suddenly showed a very gratified expression, but in the depths of her eyes, there was a deep sadness. You've all grown up. You don't need this elder sister anymore. For you, I have countless stains on my body. You should take good care of yourselves in the future. Then, under Tang Yoshing's incredulous gaze, Tangwa took the small bag and slowly walked towards the rickshaw. Tangsi was not in the same school as the two brothers, but it was not far from here. It only took a few minutes on a rickshaw. This time, Tangwa was here mainly to cut off their source of income. When she saw Tangsi, her face was full of reluctance. What's the matter? Hurry up and say it. I still have an activity with my classmates later. Cici, are you also unwilling to call me sister? Tangwa looked at Tang Si with a hurt expression. The system, who was hiding in the dark, was trembling. He was most afraid of his host's acting. It was really scary. The more she acted, the more unhappy she was. She had already fully understood what kind of people this family was. They were pretentious, arrogant, and shameless. She had to take advantage of this. Tangwa could easily cut off their source of income. They were different from some scoundrels. They thought of themselves as scholars and had innovative ideas. They couldn't put down their dignity to ask a singer for money. When Tangwa said this, Tang Si's face changed. Chapter 3981. Tang Si reprimanded. Aren't you just embarrassing our family with all the things you've done? Of all the things you could have done, why did you have to be a singer? Do you love money that much? You've been corrupted by money from head to toe. You're asking me why I don't call you sister? Do you think you're fit to be my sister? All right, hurry up and say what you want to say. Don't look like I've bullied you. It's annoying just looking at you. When the other students see you, they'll think that I've done something to you. Don't think that you can hide the things you've done by pretending to be pitiful. Tang Si's words made Tangwa uncomfortable. These ingrates really didn't understand their situation. If I'm not a singer, who's going to support you? Who's going to pay for your education? Who's going to pay for your beautiful hair clips and dresses? Tangwa knew Tang Si well. She was someone who loved face and couldn't let go of her dignity. In fact, she knew how to spend money more than anyone else. She always said that money was useless and that she shouldn't pursue it. However, she didn't have to worry about food and clothing now, which was why she was so stubborn. All right, do you have to listen to everything I say just because I've spent your money? I'm not your toy that you can buy with money and order around. Wasn't it your own wishful thinking and forcing it on me? Now that I don't call you sister, you're bringing up old scores? You really love money the most. Don't worry, I'll return it to you in the future. I'll return it to you 3 times the amount. I really don't care about your dirty money. Tangsi couldn't help but shout. She couldn't stand what Tangwa said just now. It was simply infuriating. You're really a big girl now. You have your own ideas. Tangwa smiled faintly. Her expression was filled with sadness that couldn't be erased. Tangsi was in a rage. Stop acting pitiful in front of me. Hurry up and leave. Don't come to school anymore. I'll return the money you spent. Don't worry, I won't give you a single cent less. So, don't come and judge my life. I won't in the future. Tangwa's tone was still as indifferent as ever. You've all grown up. Since you don't need me as your elder sister anymore, I'll naturally disappear from your world. I won't embarrass you. Tangsi had a bad feeling in her heart when she saw Tangwa smile at her. Tangwa took out an envelope from her bag. I wanted to give you some pocket money at the end, but it seems that I don't need it anymore. Hurry up and take it away. I told you not to give me money. I don't need you. Not everyone is like you, unable to live without these things. After Tang Si said this, she saw Tangwa put the envelope back into her bag. All right, you're a big girl too. I'll respect you this time. In the future, I won't disturb you anymore. Tang Si was stunned. She watched as Tangwa turned around and got into the rickshaw. Chapter 3982. Were you teased when you came back? Tang Yushu couldn't be blamed for thinking this way. As Tangwa became more and more popular in Xianles, the relationship between them couldn't be hidden at all. Tangwa didn't see them at all when she went home every month. In order to see them, she would only come to their school. Perhaps it was compensation for them, and she would give them a lot of money. When the students saw it, it was inevitable that they would gossip. Therefore, Tang Yushu basically didn't go out to see Tangwa. Tang Yusheng was different. In fact, his monthly expenses for learning painting were quite high. If it weren't for the money Tangwa gave him, he wouldn't be able to support his painting studies at all. Learning painting required money everywhere, especially for students in this line of work, who didn't have a lot of money at home. If they didn't have a lot of money, they wouldn't dare to learn painting. In fact, Tang Yushu also needed this money very much. The reason why he wasn't so anxious was that most of his money was used for parties, unlike Tang Yusheng, who couldn't be short of any money. Besides, Tang Yushu himself wrote some small articles, so he didn't go to parties often. The money he earned from his articles was enough for him to spend. Tang Yusheng was different. He only had expenses and no income, just like Tang Si. No. Tang Yusheng shook his head a little irritably. When I came back, I didn't meet anyone else. In fact, in school, students rarely laughed at them. They were all classmates, and there was no hatred between them, so they wouldn't always talk about it. But they just felt that Tangwa's appearance would make them lose face and lose face. Then what's the matter? By the way, how much money did she give you this month? Tang Yushu said this to remind Tang Yusheng to remember to give him his share. But as a scholar, the reminder had to be tactful. He couldn't let people think that he valued money very much. If it weren't for the blood relationship, I really wouldn't want to accept her money. If I don't accept it, she'll probably come over again and attract attention. Tang Yushu sighed as if he was forced to accept Tangwa's money. If Tangwa was here, she would really scold him for being shameless. At this moment, Tang Yusheng finally spoke. She didn't give me any money. Tang Yushu was ready to criticize Tangwa's view on money, but he didn't know what to do after hearing her words. He looked at Tang Yusheng blankly and suppressed the panic in his heart. After a long while, he asked Tang Yusheng, "What happened?" "She thinks it's embarrassing and doesn't want to do it anymore." They all remembered that Tangwa had signed a contract with Xianles for 10 years. She was already so popular. Would Xianles let her go? Could it be that she also felt embarrassed, so she redeemed herself and used all the money she had earned as compensation? Chapter 3983. However, half of this money was spent on painting, and the other half was spent on socializing and dressing himself up. For several years, Tangwa had been sending them money every month. They had already developed a habit of spending all their money every month, counting the days until today. After all, for so many years, Tangwa had never stopped coming. Every time she came, she would definitely give them money. How could Tang Yusheng have expected that Tangwa would not give them money just like that? They were caught off guard and were not prepared for it at all. Tang Yushu was speechless, and the panic in his heart gradually calmed down. Although losing a large sum of money was a blow to him, it was still a huge loss. But now, he had published several articles and was a little famous. Now, every month, there would be an article that would be picked up by the newspaper. In addition to the living expenses that Wu Feng gave him, there should be no problem. Therefore, Tang Yushu quickly felt relieved and patted Tang Yusheng on the shoulder. If she doesn't want to give it to me, so be it. I didn't want her money a long time ago. I feel uncomfortable with her money. But now, if she doesn't come in the future, it will be less of a joke. Tang Yusheng wanted to say something, but he couldn't. If he said that without Tangwa's money, how would he buy the paints and materials for his paintings? These things were expensive no matter what era it was in. The average family couldn't afford it. Seeing Tang Yushu's relieved expression, as if he had thrown away a burden, Tang Yusheng didn't dare to say that it was because of the money. They couldn't be people who were corrupted by money. That would be a joke. Tang Yusheng felt that it was better to go back and get some money from his mother. In a few days, he had an appointment with his classmates to go outside to sketch. It was almost time to buy the paints and paper. Tang Yushu also decided that if he wanted to write a few more articles and earn some royalties, he could still manage. In his heart, he despised Tangwa even more for not giving him the money. At this moment, Tang Si was still at the school gate, looking in the direction that Tangwa had left. But there were only pedestrians there, and Tangwa was nowhere to be seen. A gust of cold wind woke Tang Si up. She was so angry that her face turned red when she remembered what Tangwa had said. She stomped her feet and muttered angrily, "Who cares about your dirty money? If you don't want to give it to me, then don't give it to me. Do you think I care?" Tang Si didn't have much money left. If she spent it sparingly, she could probably spend it for 3 to 5 days. The siblings were all the same, counting the days and spending money. The original owner's punctuality every month made them develop this habit. This gave Tangwa an advantage. The sudden attack caught them off guard and they almost went berserk. Tangwa still didn't go home. Today was her free time. Although she wouldn't be so busy in the future, she still felt that today was a day off. Other than her 3 younger siblings, she also had a very good older brother. She went to the best restaurant and bought a lot of food that Tang Yui liked to eat according to his taste. She took the food box and took a rickshaw to the dock where Tang Yui worked. When she arrived at the dock, Tang Yui was still busy. After the man helped the boss unload all the goods, Tang Yui heard that Tangwa came to see him. He hurriedly wiped his sweat and washed his hands. Every month at this time, the original owner would also come, so Tang Yui didn't suspect anything. "Big sister, the sun is shining. It's so hot and dirty here. Why are you here again?" Tang Yui felt sour in his heart. After all was said and done, it was his big brother who was useless. But Tang Yui was not discouraged, because he seized the opportunity. As long as he finished the work in these 2 days, he would be working beside a big boss. It was a coincidence that he met the big boss. The big boss saw that he had good skills and was honest, so he asked him to be a follower. Although this job didn't sound good, at least it was an opportunity. The big boss was a rich man. Maybe he could make a name for himself? Once she made a name for herself, her eldest sister's good days would come. Did they say something unpleasant again? Tang Yui remembered that Tangwa went to the school to give money. Those little brats would probably say no with a look of disdain. He was very angry. "When I go back, I'll teach them a lesson." Chapter 3985. He couldn't hit his younger sister, but his 2 younger brothers could still beat her up. It could be said that his 2 younger brothers, Tang Yushu and Tang Yusheng, grew up under his fists. If it weren't for their unpleasant words, he wouldn't have had to teach them a lesson. Unfortunately, with Wu Feng's existence, he couldn't correct them. "No, big brother. I think they've grown up and have their own ideas. I also heard that Yoshu's articles can be published in the newspaper and can even get royalties. It seems that they can support themselves. In addition, Yoshing's painting is also good. I think he can also sell his paintings for a living." Tangwa's face was gratified. "I've always given them money because I was afraid that they would mistreat themselves. I didn't expect to burden them. Now that they've grown up, I don't have to give them money and cause them trouble. As for Cece, the 2 of them should be able to take good care of her as her older brothers." Tang Yui blinked and looked up at Tangwa. She was clearly smiling and looking gratified, but he saw a deep sadness in the depths of her eyes. The first thing that came to Tang Yohui's mind was none other than the fact that his eldest sister was really hurt. His eldest sister used to give money to her younger brothers and sisters because they hadn't grown up yet. She was afraid that they would be poor and bullied. Therefore, even if she endured their disdain, she still had to give them the money. Now that they had grown up, she could finally leave quietly and hide to heal her injuries. Tang Yui felt very uncomfortable and lost his appetite. But these dishes were all bought by his eldest sister, so he still finished them. They should learn to grow up. I heard that they spend money without thinking. It's good that you don't give it to them, Tang Yui said. In fact, he always felt that Tangwa didn't need to give money to the 3 little ones. "Big brother, there's also Mom. She doesn't recognize me as her daughter. I won't go back in the future." Tang Yui was taken aback. Seeing Tangwa's serious expression and her hurt eyes, he didn't know what to say for a moment. Even if I give up everything in Xianlisi, it won't change anything if I go back, right, Big Brother? Tang Yuhui smiled bitterly. Big Brother is useless. Big Brother is very useful. If it wasn't for Big Brother coming to the docks to work when I was young, I wouldn't have been able to wear a floral dress. Tang Yuhui did not persuade Tanghua to go back to the family Tang. That place would only burden his eldest sister. In the beginning, when the family was in trouble, he didn't say anything when his eldest sister used the money she earned to support the family. After all, he couldn't support the whole family on his own. He couldn't afford to send his younger siblings to school. Later on, the family's conditions improved, and the family's attitude towards his eldest sister was bad. He had tried many times to persuade his eldest sister not to take money from the family in the future, but every time the words were about to come out of her mouth, she was stopped by her eldest sister. Now that his eldest sister was disappointed in this family, Tang Yuhui was not sad in his heart, but he was sad for his eldest sister. At the same time, he was also a little happy that his eldest sister would no longer be burdened by these people who despised her. Therefore, Tang Yuhui didn't say anything. He just asked Tanghua to take good care of herself and didn't mention anything about being a family. People had to grow up. They couldn't live under the wings of others forever. He was clearer than his eldest sister about the capabilities of those few children in the family. They were useless, but their ability to spend money was not small. Now that they didn't have his eldest sister's support, he wanted to see how they could still strut around. They hadn't suffered since they were young. Now that they started to suffer a little, it could also be considered as teaching them a lesson to grow up and see if they could correct it. Chapter 3986. After dinner, Tang Yuhui was worried about letting Tanghua go back alone, so he insisted on sending her to her place. He only left when he saw her go in. Tanghua turned around to look at Tang Yuhui. She didn't expect him to come back. His tone was somewhat happy as he said, "That's right, big sister. I won't be working at the docks in a few days." Tanghua knew about this, so she continued to listen to Tang Yuhui. "The day after tomorrow, I'll be helping a big boss. Don't worry, the big boss does proper business. He's a pretty good person, and the salary he gives is many times higher than at the docks. Big sister, just wait. When Big Brother makes a name for himself, he'll come to Xianles to pick you up." Okay. Tang Yuhui's heart relaxed, and he left with a smile on his face. He was clearly wearing dirty clothes, but when he walked on the clean street with his smile, he didn't seem out of place at all. Tanghua felt that if Tang Yuhui hadn't died in the original plot, he might have been able to do something with that big boss. Picking up the original owner from Xianles wouldn't have been a dream. The audience didn't mention which big boss Tang Yuhui was working with. However, Tanghua knew when Tang Yuhui had gotten into trouble. A few months later, on a luxurious ship that seemed to be full of important people. At the time, the ship had caught fire for some reason, and no one had survived. One of the people who had died was Tanghua's target, Zhou Ji of the Zhou family. He was the current young master of the Zhou family and the head of the Zhou family. As for the fire, she thought it was simple. It was most likely due to vicious business competition. Someone had deliberately set it up. As soon as Tanghua entered the house, Anhua arrived. "Miss, there's a letter for you." Anhua handed the letter to Tanghua. Tanghua opened it and saw that it was a reply from the newspaper company. The general idea was that the article she wrote had already been accepted. They even picked a good day, which was the day after tomorrow, to publish it. There were all sorts of praises for Tanghua in the letter, but Tanghua ignored them with a smile. Tanghua had used a pseudonym to submit the article. She had only left her address here. The news agency wouldn't inquire about who lived here. Currently, they didn't know that Tanghua was the signature of Xianles. Under normal circumstances, they would publish the article, send a sample report to the writer, and send back the remuneration. The reason why she wrote a reply to Tanghua was because her article was too good. Tanghua thought for a while and sent out a small portion of the book she had written in her free time. She still used the pen name Mountain Man. It was a story of love and hatred in troubled times, which was in line with the aesthetics of this era. After doing all this, she felt a little tired and went back to her room to rest. On the third day, Tanghua's article was published in the newspaper. New tales of troubled times and mountain people immediately became a hot topic of discussion among those who had read the newspaper. The group of students was having the most heated discussion. If Tangwa had been at school, she would have seen some students arguing with others until their faces turned red because of this article. No matter what, the idea of the mountain people had created a wave among the students. Even if many people did not agree with the views of the mountain people, it was because many of the views were very new. It was even difficult for some old-fashioned people to accept. However, this group of students who had been educated with new ideas held mountain people in high esteem. A scene could be seen on campus. Many students were holding a newspaper with the article "New Tales of Troubled Times" written on it. The more they read, the more obsessed they became, as if they had seen their first love. When Tang Yusheng came to look for Tang Yushu, he saw Tang Yushu holding a newspaper and reading the article about the mountain man. Great! It's written so well. It's simply spoken my mind. This mountain man is really a genius. Tang Yushu couldn't help but share it with Tang Yusheng. Tang Yusheng was annoyed at the moment. After a while, he said, "Yushu, do you have any money? Can you lend me some?" Chapter 3987. Money? Tang Yushu was stunned for a moment. They had never worried about money since they went to school. Naturally, there was no such thing as borrowing money between the siblings, because the money Tangwa gave them was enough for them to spend, so they never worried about money. Tang Yusheng suddenly asked to borrow money, and Tang Yushu didn't react. Because he recently received a sum of money from the author, he had some money, but not much, just enough for him to spend. At this time, he also remembered that Tangwa no longer gave them money. "Have you spent all your money?" Tang Yushu didn't lend money to Tang Yusheng directly. He guessed that Tang Yusheng wanted to borrow money to buy paints, which were expensive, and he didn't have enough money. Tang Yusheng nodded a little embarrassedly. "Paints and drawing paper are almost used up. I have to buy some. I have an appointment with my classmates to go out to sketch in 2 days. These things are necessary. Lend me some for emergencies, and I'll pay you back when I have money." Pay him back? How could he pay him back? Tang Yusheng was a big spender. If he went back and asked his mother for money, it would probably be enough for him to spend. He was afraid that he couldn't pay him back. The main thing was that he didn't have much. He felt a little embarrassed to ask his mother for money. Anyway, he was a little talented and planned to make some money with his articles. Now that he could make money, why should he spend a singer's money? It was not easy for him to straighten his back. He didn't want to be as humble as before and be laughed at by others. Therefore, the money couldn't be borrowed. This time, when he saw the article of the mountain man, he got a lot of inspiration and felt that he could write more articles. At that time, he could make money with his own talent, clean and upright, and no one would laugh at him anymore. "I have no money," Tang Yushu said. "I just have enough for my daily expenses. If I give it to you, I won't have enough for my daily expenses." Tang Yusheng's face was a little ugly, and he felt a little uncomfortable. Didn't Tang Yushu show off in front of him a few days ago that he had received the royalties for the previous article? He also showed him the newspaper, pointed to an article on it, and said that it was written by him. But Tang Yusheng didn't say it out loud. He suddenly remembered that Tang Yushu was also a big spender. He didn't count on his daily life, so he probably had no money on him. "All right then, I'll go back and ask Mom for some." Tangwa didn't tell Wu Feng that she was subsidizing her younger brothers and sisters. Naturally, they wouldn't tell Wu Feng how much money Tangwa had given them. They just kept it to themselves. Chapter 3988. However, she couldn't admit that she was angry because Tangwa didn't give her money. Now that she had scolded Tangwa in front of her children and warned them not to learn from Tangwa, she finally felt happy. She looked at the few good sons and daughters in front of her. They were all scholars that she had supported, and all of them were good-looking. She felt much better. At this moment, Tang Yusheng said, "Mom, I'm going to sketch with my classmates in a few days. I'm out of paint. Then I'll give you some money. No matter what, you must tell me if you need something for your studies." Over the years, Wu Feng had saved a lot of the money that Tangwa gave her. The main thing was that not only did Tangwa give her family, but she also paid for her younger siblings' school fees and daily expenses. In addition, every time Tang Chuanxiang had a gambling debt, Tangwa would take the initiative to help him settle it. Currently, Tang Chuanxiang wasn't home. He was probably still gambling outside. Anyway, when it was time for Tangwa to give him his salary, she would take the initiative to ask someone to find Tang Chuanxiang and give him the money. Those casino owners saw Tang Chuanxiang as if he was the child of wealth. They weren't afraid that he wouldn't pay them back. "Mom, I have some activities with my classmates too." Tang Si hadn't asked Wu Feng for money for a long time. Basically, Wu Feng would give them some money at the end of every month. It was a little difficult for her to say such things. Her face was a little red. However, Wu Feng didn't notice this. She thought that there might really be some activities at school. Based on the previous expenses, she added a little more and gave it to the two of them. When the two of them saw the money in their hands, they were a little dumbfounded. Although it was the same amount every month, and it was a little more this time, compared to the money that Tangwa gave them every month, this was really too little. Not to mention a month, even 10 days was enough to choke them. Tang Si and Tang Yusheng were prideful people. They felt that this matter was very degrading, so they took the money silently and didn't say much. However, in their hearts, they really didn't feel good. Tangwa didn't know what the two of them were going through. The Yamanashi's new tales of troubled times was still being discussed in full swing. At the same time, the news agency received an opening submission from Tangwa. Originally, they were all wondering if they should contact this mountain man again to see if he was willing to write more articles and submit them to their newspaper. They didn't expect that when they were still thinking about how to communicate with her, she would actually submit an article. After reading the first few thousand words, the managing editor of the news agency was overjoyed. At this moment, he already had the urge to meet and talk to this mountain man. Now that the mountain man's reputation was flourishing, in his opinion, this article would make this name popular again. When the time came, everyone would pay attention to their newspapers. As long as there were articles from the mountain people, the newspapers would definitely sell well. When Tangwa received the letter from the news agency, she did not accept the meeting with the managing editor. She only replied with a letter saying that she would continue to work with the news agency. This story would be serialized on their side in the future. If possible, they could sign a contract. After receiving the letter, the editor-in-chief of the news agency was of course willing. In less than 3 days, the contract was signed. Other than attending classes, performing, writing articles, and family tang, Wu Feng wouldn't come looking for her. However, the other person would probably find a way to look for her and ask her for money. After all, she hadn't given Tang Chuanxiang any money this month. It was impossible to give money to Tang Chuanxiang. Chapter 3989. Then what could she do so that she could openly refuse to give Tang Chuanxiang money? At this time, she inadvertently received news that the city's scholars were going to hold a literary tea party. "Uncle, when is the literary tea party?" Anhua was silent for a moment. "Miss is going to participate in the literary tea party?" He thought that Tangwa was finally going to show off her talent. Tangwa did not hide the fact that she was writing from Anhua. Nowadays, things like sending out manuscripts were all handled by Anhua. "Yes, I plan to go and take a look. I've always been in Xianles, so I want to see other places." Tangwa smiled. "However, I don't plan on showing off anything. I'm just going to see what the literary tea party is like." When Anhua heard this, he understood what was going on. Miss probably liked those places a lot, so she wanted to go and take a look. However, Miss did not like to be in the limelight. She just wanted to see it. He felt that this was fine. When Miss was no longer in Xianles, she would be able to truly show off her talent. It would be even better. "I'll go ask around." Not long after, Anhua told Tangwa the time of the literary tea party and also got a ticket for Tangwa. After all, a literary tea party needed a venue to prevent random people from sneaking in. The venue of the literary tea party was not as dazzling as the one in Xianles. Instead, it was simple and elegant. Tangwa was dressed more plainly today, but she was covered in glitter. The moment she arrived, countless people's gazes fell on her. Many people recognized her appearance. After all, her photo had been published in the newspapers, so there was almost no one who did not recognize her. Especially every time she performed, her photo would be printed on the tickets. Many people even specially kept the tickets that they had used before. If it were any other singing event, Tangua's appearance might be very popular. Many people would be eager for her to come. However, this was a literary tea party. Her appearance gave people a very subtle feeling. Most of the people here were students. Most of them were between 15 and 20 years old. There were fewer people of other ages. Most of these young students did not like women like Tangua who sang for money. In their eyes, she was selling her looks. Even if she didn't sell herself, it was still a very embarrassing thing. Family Tang brothers and sisters were all here. They were originally chatting and laughing in the corner, but the scene suddenly quieted down. They looked up and saw Tangua walking in slowly with a group of people. They were not happy when they saw how radiant she was. Instead, their expressions changed. They wanted to stand up immediately and yell at Tangua to get out. This was a literary tea party. What was she doing here? Tangua took in everyone's expressions. She nodded and smiled at them, then found an empty seat and sat down. She seemed to be saying, "Do as you please." She just wanted to come and take a look. If I'm not mistaken, this should be Miss Tang from Xinla, right? At this moment, a young man dressed simply walked up to Tangua. "Miss Tang, this is the literature tea party." "I know." "Miss Tang, we didn't invite you to sing." The young man continued, not giving Tangua any face. In his opinion, Tangua's presence in this place was an insult to their tea party. "If Miss Tang doesn't have anything else to say, you should leave. We don't need you to sing here. Thank you for your kindness. The friends here are all here to discuss poems and essays." Chapter 3990. He almost said that this wasn't a place for people like her. Tangua maintained her smile. "I've always envied cultured people. I heard that there was a literary tea party here, so I came to take a look. You guys can talk. I'll listen." The young man frowned, and his tone was no longer as polite as before. "Miss Tang, have you gone to school?" "I started working very early, so I didn't have the chance to go to school." "System, did you hear that?" She didn't have the chance to go to school. The word school had to be emphasized. It meant that she didn't go to school, not that she was uncultured. "Miss Tang, if you haven't gone to school, then can you read?" The young man's words were full of contempt, but Tangua didn't show any signs of anger. What was there to be angry about? How arrogant these scholars were today would be how swollen their faces would be in the future. "Of course I can read. How can we, the people of Xianles, not be illiterate? If we can't read, how can we recognize the lyrics?" Tangua said matter-of-factly. The young man couldn't help but laugh, and the surrounding crowd also laughed. He continued, "Then, Miss Tang, have you studied writing? Can you understand the poems and essays we're discussing? From ancient times to the present, there were countless excellent essays that could not be compared to those simple and easy to understand and vulgar lyrics. If you don't put in some effort, you won't be able to understand the meaning. Miss Tang, I'm afraid that you won't be able to follow the essays, poems, and couplets that we'll be writing here. I don't think this place is suitable for you." Tangua shook her head. "I'm just here to take a look. I don't want to do anything. I never knew what a gathering of scholars was like, so I came here today to broaden my horizons." "Is there a rule here that other people can't enter?" Everyone fell silent. There wasn't such a rule. As long as they had a ticket, they could enter. Tang Yuxing, Tang Yushu, and Tang Si, who were hiding in the corner, didn't say anything. If they went over to talk to Tangua now, wouldn't they be drawing attention to themselves? They were extremely dissatisfied with Tangua. She didn't even look at where she was. Was this a place she could come? He wanted her to go back to where she belonged, but he was afraid of being laughed at by others. They didn't want to stand out, but a busybody shouted loudly, "I heard that Miss Tang is the daughter of Best Actress Tang and the elder sister of Tang and Yushu. Why didn't you tell us in advance that your elder sister is coming to the literary tea party?" Of course, the person who spoke didn't like Tang Yuxing and Li Qia. Usually, because they had the pocket money given by Tangua, they used everything well. They were not short of money and were generous, so they were very popular. Chapter 3991. My family has told her many times not to go to that event, but she insisted on going. She just had a falling out with my mother. My mother is not satisfied with her and forbade her from attending family dinner in the future. I guess she's here to make us uncomfortable. Really? Tang Yushu still wanted to nod and say something, but he didn't expect that Tangwa had already walked in front of him. It seems that I really shouldn't have come today. Even her own brother doesn't want to recognize me as his sister. I also want to recognize you, Tang Yushu said indifferently, but what you did was really too embarrassing for our family. How can Mom not be angry? If you didn't go to those events, would Mom not let you go home? Do you think that I'm ashamed to come to this place today? Tangwa's eyes swept over Tang Yuxing and the other two. Seeing that they were silent, the surrounding students were also very silent. Tang Yuxing, Tang Yushu, and Tang Si are all serious scholars. But I don't understand why you would go to a place like Xianles when they're all studying in school, said a few of the youngsters. Tang Yuxing, Tang Yushu, and Tang Si are all serious scholars. If such a thing happened to me, I wouldn't be able to stand it. Yes, this is a literary tea party, a place where scholars gather. You suddenly came here, and you are also related to them by blood. Didn't you come here to make them lose face and lose face? I really don't know if you, as their sister, deliberately came here to make trouble for them. Many people didn't know the background of Xianlisi, especially this group of students. They only liked literature, new things, and looked down on the singers of Xianlisi. Besides, for them, scolding a degenerate singer of Xianlisi was not only not shameful, but also a kind of heroic deed. In their hearts, if a self-degrading singer like Tangwa was awakened by their scolding, it would be a merit. Tangwa laughed in her heart, but she didn't show it. She looked indifferent and didn't pay attention to those young people. Instead, her eyes fell on Tang Yuxing and Tang Yushu. This was the way of the world. Many people praised her, but also looked down on her. Among this group of scholars, how many people once wanted to hear her sing? Later, when they found that they didn't even have a chance to get close to her, they became angry out of shame and thought that she was a vulgar person who valued money above all. She wasn't angry, not at all. This was her purpose for coming here today. As long as Tang Yushu, Tang Yuxing, and Tang Si didn't speak up for her and wanted to distance themselves from her, it was fine. I'm actually very envious of scholars, Tangwa said. She saw the looks of disgust on everyone's faces. Clearly, they felt that her love was an insult to them. She continued speaking. I didn't think that my appearance would cause you trouble. When Tangwa said this, she looked at Tang Si and the other two. The three of them met her eyes. They didn't know why, but they felt a little flustered. As for why they were flustered, they couldn't figure it out. Tangwa sighed. If I wasn't your sister, no one would laugh at you, and I wouldn't hinder your future. System. He seemed to have understood something. Holy shit, this move of the host was too ruthless. She didn't leave them any way out. You guys continue. I'll be leaving first. Sorry for disturbing your tea party, Tangwa said to the trio. From today onwards, this kind of trouble will no longer accompany you. From now on, you will have a bright future. I will no longer be a burden to you. After that, without waiting for everyone to react, Tangwa left the literary tea party. After getting on the rickshaw, her red lips curled slightly. She said to the driver, "Go to the newspaper office." System. Host. Why are you going to the newspaper office? Tangwa slowly stroked the messy hair beside her ear and said softly, "Publish a notice to sever our relationship. I don't want to be a burden to my family." System. Awesome. Chapter 3992. Miss Tang, are you sure you only want to publish this sentence? Who didn't know Miss Tang from Xianles? When Tangwa approached the news agency, someone recognized her. The managing editor personally came out to greet her. After all, she was the king of topics. Any news that had even the slightest bit to do with her would definitely cause a sensation. But the managing editor still didn't understand what was so important that she had to come personally. When he asked about Tangwa's intentions, she actually wanted to sever ties with her family in the newspaper. This shocked him, although he was also very excited. He was sure that when the newspaper was printed tomorrow, it would definitely cause a sensation in the entire Haiqing. But what he didn't understand was that the content of Tangwa's newspaper was very simple. There was only one sentence. Today, Tangwa would sever ties with her family. One had to know that the current Tangwa was the brand of Xianles. There were countless people who liked her, but there were also many who looked down on her. Once this news was published, it would definitely cause countless people to talk about it. Perhaps most people would just talk about it and be done with it. After all, it wasn't unheard of to publish a divorce and sever ties with someone. The difference was that Tangwa's status was different, and she was more famous. However, there were many scholars in Haiqing, and those scholars liked to criticize this and that. Speaking of which, these things didn't matter to him. Whether Tangwa was good or not, whether she was criticized or not, it didn't matter to him. As long as the newspaper sold well, it was fine. However, he actually liked to listen to Tangwa's songs and could be considered her fan. The tickets to her performances were very expensive, so he couldn't go every time. But if he had the time, he would definitely go. So, he didn't want her to be criticized when the time came. He thought that Tangwa didn't know about these things, so he asked. Unexpectedly, Tangwa's attitude was still the same as before. I don't want to say anything else. Just publish it like this. Miss Tang, if you only publish this sentence, it might cause you a lot of trouble tomorrow, the managing editor said with some concern. The managing editor said with some concern, you know that people outside like to talk about right and wrong. Most of them are bad things. Tangwa couldn't help but smile. Isn't the newspaper selling even better? The editor-in-chief shook his head. Although I also like that the newspaper is selling well, I don't want Miss Tang to be criticized because of this. I believe that your decision to sever ties with your family was definitely not a spur-of-the-moment decision. There must be some unknown secret behind it. For your own good, I suggest that you publish all the reasons, regardless of whether they are good or bad, so that you don't have to be afraid of people talking about it. If you only post one sentence like this, you don't know what rumors will spread. Thank you for your kind intentions, Director Su, but I've decided to only publish this sentence. I don't want to talk about other things, and I don't want to talk about those things. Tangwa's stubborn look made Su Changsheng feel that there must be some secret behind it. He had seen Tangwa dazzling on stage many times, but he had never seen her like this. When he spoke, there was a hint of sadness and helplessness in his expression. At this moment, Su Changsheng had the urge to uncover the secrets behind this. He tried to persuade her again, but Tangwa still insisted. In the end, he had no choice but to follow what she wrote. When he saw that small line of words, he was stunned for a moment, because the words were written very beautifully. It wasn't that he hadn't seen good words before, so there weren't many words that could be praised by him. He couldn't help but admire her even more. Chapter 39-93. He didn't expect her to be so good at singing, and her handwriting to be so good as well. Her handwriting was so good that she wasn't a simple singer. Vaguely, Su Changsheng felt that he had seen this line of small words somewhere before, but he couldn't remember where. However, this was a line of small regular script. Women all like to write small regular script, so it wasn't anything unusual. He might have seen it somewhere else by accident. Tangwa left the news agency in a very good mood. There was actually someone by her side the whole time. It was the bodyguard that Xianles had arranged for her. Unless there was any danger, he would only be a wooden stake. Even if she had done so many things today, that bodyguard would only keep an eye on her and wouldn't say anything to anyone. This was the right that Xianles had given her. She wasn't afraid of what would happen to her reputation when the newspaper came out tomorrow. The main force that came to listen to her songs were basically not students. Most of them were people with good family conditions. Besides, she had only severed ties with her family in the newspaper. She hadn't done anything bad. Even if there was a lot of discussion outside, it wouldn't affect anything. There was nothing wrong with it. This era wasn't the internet era of the future. Besides, she didn't intend to be criticized for long. She just wanted to let this matter ferment for a while. Then, it would naturally develop in the direction she wanted. It wouldn't take long for the entire high city to know about what happened between her and her family. By then, many people would understand that she had severed ties with her family, not because she didn't want to support them. It was because her family couldn't accept her identity. Now that her younger siblings had grown up, they didn't need her anymore. It was because she felt that her existence would hinder her younger siblings' future and affect their reputation. Since they had grown up and didn't need her anymore, it was time for her to quit. If these things were exposed by others, it would be more convincing than if she said it herself. It would attract more sympathy from the people of High City. Don't think that the group of students now looked down on her. They felt that she had abandoned herself and implicated the 3 children in her family. That was because they didn't know that she was the one who had supported this family all these years, paid for the 3 children's tuition fees, and gave them pocket money. Once they found out, the 3 children's situation in school would be very delicate. Tangwa went home happily and continued to write. She didn't intend to thank an article like News Stories in Troubled Times for the time being. If you write too many of these articles, they won't be worth reading anymore. She might as well write some interesting and touching stories about love and hate. Currently, she was still writing the one she had submitted to the newspaper. It was called Beauties in Troubled Times. A few days ago, it had already been published in the newspaper, and the response was very good. After all, with the pen name The Man of the Mountains, it had already attracted a lot of attention. This was especially so for the group of students at the school. When they realized that the people in the mountains had actually written about it, they happily went to buy the newspaper. After reading it, they felt that it was not enough. The topic of the literary tea party that they had stopped today was the discussion of the people in the mountains. In addition, they were looking forward to meeting the mountain people. It was a literary tea party. What if the people from the mountains also came? However, they didn't see anyone from the mountain. Instead, they saw Tangwa. Tangwa scolded her and sent her away. When Tangwa's disguise was exposed one day, and they found out that she was from the mountains, their faces would definitely be swollen. Chapter 3994. Tangwa decided that in addition to writing, she would also write some articles about this era from time to time to make the pen name, the Mountain Man, famous. Not only did she want to cause a sensation in Haicheng, but she also wanted to cause a sensation in other places. In the future, when people from other places heard the Mountain Man, they would think that this person was a great writer. That would be a lot more. Tang thought for a while. Not only did she have to write articles, but she also had to write some poems. To be a great writer, a few articles were not enough. Some sad and magnificent poems would increase people's impression. However, poems could not be written casually. She had to find an opportunity. She might as well write poems when something sad and indignant happened in some place and caused countless people to feel sad and helpless. That would leave a deeper impression. During this period, she could not reveal her identity. As for when she would reveal her identity, that would have to wait until everyone knew about the Mountain Man and treated her as a great writer who worshipped her. As Tangwa thought about it, she could not help but laugh. She really wanted to see their faces in the future. It would be so swollen. System. Host, don't laugh so slyly. I'm a little scared. Little Tongzi, don't pretend. You're scared. Great host, you've been causing a lot of trouble recently. Haven't you thought of anything else? Tangwa was puzzled. What am I thinking of? The system made an O sound, feeling a little sorry for someone. Your cutie has transmigrated to this world for more than a month. Haven't you paid attention to where your cutie has gone? Maybe he's still waiting for you to save him. If fate allows, we'll naturally meet. If he doesn't show up, I'll have to look for him all over the world and publish it in the newspaper, right? If he doesn't show up, then forget it. I still have a lot of things to do in this world. I don't have time for love for the time being. System. Heartless woman. A certain someone was about to cry. After Tangwa left, the literary tea party became more lively. Just as Tangwa had guessed, everyone had a newspaper. The pages they turned to were all about the Mountain Man's articles. Currently, she had a cautionary article and a part of it that had been published for 2 issues. They had bought them all. Tangwa's appearance previously seemed to be just an interlude. After a moment of awkwardness, they started to talk among themselves. Tang Yushu, do you also like the man in the mountains? Hearing this question, Tang Yushu immediately threw the awkwardness to the back of his mind and quickly nodded. Yes, The Man in the Mountains is written very well. I was a little surprised when I heard that the mountain dwellers had published it, so I didn't have much hope. After reading the first 2 episodes, he was already engrossed in the story. New Stories in Troubled Times was well written, but I felt that what was even more interesting and captivating was this article called Beauties in Troubled Times. In just 2 issues, I could already feel the thoughts that the people in the mountains wanted to express. He integrated his own thoughts and opinions into the story. The words are beautiful, and the reading is lively and interesting. As expected of someone from the mountains, it turns out that so many people like people from the mountains. I thought that they would come to the literary tea party. The person who spoke shook his head and looked at everyone in the tea party. Everyone here is a familiar face. Everyone knows each other. I don't think the people from the mountains are here. From the pin name The Mountain Man, you can tell that he's a person who doesn't care about fame and fortune. Of course, he wouldn't participate in such a tea party. I also hope to see the true appearance of the people in the mountains, but now I can only regret it. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.